I'm going to ask a quick favour. If you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button and the follow button. Like, share, rate, review the podcast. It helps more than you realise.
Do you know what? There's never a right time to do it. There is always a reason not to do something. So if you let that reason be your decision-making factor, then you're not actually ever going to do anything. Absolutely, I'm a product of looking at the experiences I had as a child. And I think the biggest thing that shaped me is actually I lost my mum at a very young age. I was only 7 when she died. And that, obviously, a huge impact at the time, huge impact growing up. Giving him those experiences and those life memories, for me, that's my having it all. And I could work 12 hours a day and drive a Bentley or whatever, that's not my having it all. If that's what you want to do, if anyone else wants to do that, all power to them. Just find what motivates you, what is your identifier as having it all, and then work to that. The expectation was exactly like our parents did. I was very fortunate. My mum, before she died, she did work. She worked at the BBC. She was a bit of a maverick. Maybe that's where I get it from. But when she had the children, it was expected that she stopped working, and she volunteered for Meals on Wheels. And that was really kind of the expectation coming through. And I just thought, nah, that's not for me. And I want to work in the music industry, and I just want to go and just do my own thing. And we still have this real perception that private school clever equals better than maybe someone who, if they will learn business skills or mortgages and credit cards and life skills or politics, you might find someone who's like the greatest politician on planet Earth that went to an academy school that was academised because it was failing, but they haven't had that opportunity. And it's about levelling off and changing the perception of those opportunities. Do you know, actually, it was Sir Clive Woodward that put it absolutely best. There is absolutely no difference between sport and business, because at the end of the day, it's just getting the best out of people.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest on the podcast this week is the founder and managing director of Jessica Freeman HR. She has over 25 years experience in HR and started her own company in 2014. She's also involved at various levels at Dorking Rugby Club, community coach at Harlequins, and played rugby at a very high standard. We met at a business expo last year and started talking about her upbringing, education, and how rugby and her rugby career and career in HR, and it was such an interesting conversation that we had. Since then, I've just been excited to have you on. We had, and talk about maybe the expectations of you from a young age and the route you decided to take, and it's going to be a great story. And thank you for coming on and sharing it with us. So I'm delighted to welcome Jessica Freeman to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really excited to do this.
Cool.
It kind of feels like it's been a little bit of a long time coming since we met.
I know.
I'm just really glad we've actually managed to get it on.
Absolutely. Look, like I said, that initial conversation for me, I was like, wow. And we chatted for ages, didn't we? We was at the expo. We were just standing there chatting for. I was like, we need to get you on. We need to get. So look, it's been great to get to know you, obviously, over the last year as well, and been at various events together. So look, we're going to delve straight in as we always do. So look, just tell the listeners a little bit about your story, your journey, and where it all sort of started.
Yeah. So, in a long distance, other century ago. Graduated and went straight into working in the music industry. Had a ridiculous time running around with boy bands, girl bands, everything in the 90s. And then hit a really massive glass ceiling. Women in media, music, that side of things, was really, really tough. And I had to make some sort of decisions about actually quite a young age, whether it was what I wanted to continue to do. And that was quite tough. Because it was kind of like, that's your dream job. That was what you dreamt of when you were a kid. And suddenly it isn't quite what you thought it was going to be. And I actually just walked into a recruiter's and said, I need a job. And after doing a bit of temping, they went, come and work here. Come and set up a music desk, get other people jobs in the music industry. You know what it's like. And that kind of started the next bit of the journey, and ended up working in a lot of growth strategy and a lot of startups and small business and music and digital and the whole Y2K content, we were growing, redundancies growing, everyone was doing all this crazy thing at 2000. Got really, really involved with that, people like Napster, iTunes, MySpace, things like that. Had my child 10 days before Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Wow.
And I decided that was going to be the best thing or the worst thing. And I wasn't quite sure which, as the world was kind of collapsing and I'm on maternity leave. I actually got made redundant. And that then spurred me to change. And even though I had quite a few challenges, I decided to do a master's degree with a 1-year-old child and do my HR. No, I should do.
Of course.
Do human resource management degree, master's degree.
What made you think about, like, with the HR stuff? Why do a master's in that?
So
where did that come?
I actually really treated it as a massive crossroads in my life. I'd done lots of things, been involved in sport, been involved in the music industry, had some crazy experiences. Proper, my dinner party stories are never dry. There's a lot going on there from back in the day. But I had to kind of make a decision with a child of exactly what I wanted to do. And a lot of people had said, you could organise events, or you'd be really good in other kind of roles, or and I kind of looked at a few things around sport, and there really weren't that many opportunities in that side of things. And actually what I was good at was people. And with the background of recruitment, growth strategy, redundancy, they're all kind of core transactional functions within HR. So it was a really good opportunity to then just go, okay, well, actually, if I make this decision of this is the career point for the rest of, the next section of my life, as it were, I'm going to do it properly. So I did the conversion, did the 3-year professional masters, did all the areas that maybe I hadn't covered before, worked part-time at a hotel on Brighton seafront, which was eye-opening beyond. Did more employee relations in 1 year. I probably did about 5 years worth in 1 year. Really, really honed the skills. There's a lot that goes on in hospitality. Anyone who's working in hospitality will tell you, they'll know there's a lot that goes on in hospitality. But there wasn't a true part-time role. It really, really wasn't. And that is what I was craving. So I did some voluntary work. And then eventually, lots of my friends that had been made redundant, a lot of creatives actually, had set their own stuff up from the back of the financial crisis.
Sure.
And I was getting focused, can you just put me a contract together? Can I just pay you to do that? Or can you just sack this person for me? Can I pay you to do that? And I kind of realised there was a really big gap in the market for small businesses. And that's how Jessica Freeman HR came about. Right. From looking at what that need was and looking at that dip in, pay as you go, just someone on tap, just a bit of access. And that's really what we've modelled the whole business around, the whole premise around is the pay as you go, accessible, affordable for small businesses that just have never thought they needed HR and never considered it. And then it's gone massive, and then COVID, and then it's got even more massive. And then here we are, alongside progressing a rugby coaching career as a hobby job.
I mean, look, the sports side of things, we'll definitely delve into a little bit. I just wanted to, like, with the HR thing, I think it's fascinating because I obviously I remember running the salon, and that was probably the most difficult thing for me, was managing people, like especially younger people within that creative industry. Went out on a piss on a Friday night, didn't come in, I'm like, But knowing those procedures, and just that, for me, like, we was part of obviously a franchise organisation, so we had HR support in some way, but I had to pay for that through that was outsourcing. You just like, it would have been ideal to have something like, for a small business, I could just gone, right, can I have a bit of help?
Yeah,
blah, blah,
there's
blah.
that.
And and that sort of pay as you go type thing, which is because you do need that, because there's so much red tape, there's so many procedures you have to follow from a HR point of view, isn't there, that people don't know.
Yeah, there is. But I'm going to kind of sell it all a little bit short, I think. It's actually not that difficult.
Yeah.
The thing that makes it difficult is that people are involved. So actually, the statutes, the structures, the laws that are in place, the case laws there, the processes that you need to cover actually aren't that difficult. That, you know, the knowledge base of actually I can do it off the top of my head. You might have to Google it. You know, that's what you pay for, that instant, and getting it right straight away, rather than kind of navigating through maybe some legal language.
It's that comfort blanket, I guess, as well, knowing that someone, because, you know.
No, exactly. But what makes it really challenging, and one of the things that I know that is really one of our unique selling points, is coming up with creative ways of finding those solutions.
Yeah, sure.
Because when you throw people at it, people do crazy stuff and people don't behave. You can kind of, you know, a lot of people go, I bet you've seen it all. It's like, I can never have seen it all because I've not met every single person on the planet. And I hopefully never have to. But you can't, you can gauge, you can use your experience, you can generalise on what you feel might happen in a situation, but you just never know what curveball's coming next. And that's what makes it really exciting. And that's what keeps it challenging for someone who's doing it across a whole raft of businesses rather than just your own. Because a lot of people say to me, they go, how do you constantly, obviously when we've had some downturns, constantly doing the redundancies pre-COVID, constantly doing the furloughs in everything, because every environment's different, every company's different, and every person is different. But it's just there to know you've got someone at the end of the phone that sometimes you just want to go, can I just talk to you for half an hour? Can I take you out for lunch? I just want to run something past you. That conversations usually start with, can I just run something past you? Or I hear you're really good at sacking people. That's how conversations normally start when people
like the Ellen Shoe, you're fine.
Yeah, kind of a little bit. And I have to kind of calm people, go, well, yes, but let's find out what's happened. It depends what's going on. That's my favourite phrase. It depends. That will be the answer to everything until we actually know the details of where we're at and what we're doing.
Yeah, of course.
Irrespective of people thinking they just can fire people.
Because you do, like, again, I always refer to saying, man, at times I used to think, like, because ultimately, part of you, someone would do that and they come in and they just, they not come in for 3 days, not contact you, like, just get your stuff and get out. Like, that's what you want to do, but obviously you can't do that. There's things in place, and for good reason, because there was, other reasons that. But it's just from a leader point of view or management point of view, it's just knowing that you go, right, what can I do and can't I do, and what's the best route out of here, out of this situation? I guess
it is.
This is a problem. This is a problem, and you guys just come in. We're going to find you a solution, the best one for you. Really.
It is. It's that solution finding, but it's also. And this might sound a little bit bizarre from an HR person, but it is depersonalising it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Because when, especially you are a small business, you're very close to the people that are working for you, with you as a team, because it's a small team. And some of them might have been with you for quite a long time.
Yeah, you've built relationships with them, haven't you?
No, absolutely. And so... in fact, I was having a conversation with a client yesterday who really couldn't get to grips with changing a structure. We're implementing a new policy. It will affect a few people. And they couldn't apply the framework and the policy to a couple of people. And I just said, why are you applying it to the person? This is about the job. This is about the role in the organisation and where it fits with the organisation.
Sure.
And as soon as they got that, they just went, oh, that's not a problem then anymore, is it? Like, it's fine. And it's just that kind of slightly external, absolutely the welfare and the fairness for the employee and the person has to be the absolute start and process level.
Sure.
And just because I'm independent doesn't mean I don't care and I don't know that.
But it's a fresh set of eyes as well, isn't it? I think that's the key.
It's just that slightly step back. It's just that kind of overview. And being able to apply, the statutes, the laws, and look at the right process. And what I try to do is not try and tell my clients what to do. I try and let them try and get to that conclusion themselves. Because it's more powerful for them to learn
and understand.
And if it's more about guiding them, and there are times and we have to say, look, this is what we have to do, and they're like, I need you to tell me what to do. I can say, well, look, this is what we can do, this is the options you've got, how's this going to impact your business long term, we always call it about setting a precedence. The actions that you do for one will set the precedence of how you're going to behave for all. And if you can get that right. And I love working with businesses from the beginning because
sure.
you can set that precedent from the start through your contracts, your handbooks, your policies, however you want to work. We can be creative. You don't have to be prescriptive. It can be how you want your company to be shaped. But it sets the precedence for how you behave throughout as an employer. And it can set the tone of your business because of how the people that you're bringing in. So
it's such an important part of, and again, it's something we're definitely, I want to come on to later, talking about culture, because it's something that, you know, I always discuss, but I guess that's such an important part of culture, isn't it? And your role, such an integral role, in, especially from the start, I guess that you know, that business owner speaking to you and saying, this is the culture I want to create. So you almost put systems in place, I'm assuming, to help create that.
Yeah, and the culture is such a challenge, and culture changes. And, you know, we went through those of us that remember the 90s-ish, that whole, hey, we've got a mission statement, we've got a vision statement, and everyone put down on paper what they thought their company was meant to be. And actually cultures change, and you can have an ethos of where you're at and what you want for the company, but then external factors, internal factors, things out of your control, you know, will affect and kind of hit that culture and hit that ethos, and you might have to adapt and change. And it's very much about, when you're trying to foster a culture, it's also being able to reflect if it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you kind of go, I want to set up a new business and it's going to be like this, and we're going to work a 4-day week, full pay, and we're going to go for all of these great home working things. But if you don't actually put a point where you're going to reflect and actually look at it and go, is this working? Is this right?
Absolutely.
You know, I have one client that we've completely flipped their way they work coming out of COVID, in that now they completely remote work, and your flexible working request is how many days you would like to be in the office.
Wow.
Which is an entirely made up by Jess kind of concept that we came with. But what we did was we talked to the employees. This came out of an employee survey coming out of COVID at the end of last year. It came out of a lot of consultation about how they were feeling. Were they feeling isolated? Very much looking at their mental health side of things. Did they feel they supported still and access? And actually, majoritively, yes. So this was appropriate for this type of organisation to go for this slightly crazy approach. And we set a clear parameter that we are going to review this in 6 months. This is a temporary adjustment to your contract for 6 months. We're going to have review phases. We're going to discuss this with you of how it's working. There are going to be things that, you know, we put in that they had to come to team meetings, which then had an impact on how much they pay for travel and who's travelling from where. But actually, the opportunities that this has given this organisation in terms of recruitment, they can now have international recruitment because they're all working remotely.
Sure.
So a talent pool issue that we have at the moment has now eradicated that side for them. We also looked at flexibility. So, you know, they get a lunch break at home, but actually do they want to pick the kids up and drop them off at grandma's and see their kids in the day? Or do they want to have different, you know, that they can finish at 5 o'clock, that means they're at 5 o'clock, so they can go and participate in sport or a club or an activity that they want to do that's not at 8 o'clock at night because they've commuted home. But then there's really important that they're supported, there's team meetings, they have time in the office, you know, they see their teammates, they have that face-to-face as well and that interaction.
Of course.
And at the moment for them, this isn't going to work for everyone, you know, but for that particular organisation, it's really working. But it's so crucial. We're still, even though it looks like it's great and everyone's loving it, we're still going to do that reflect and review at 6 months. And actually really look at what's worked, what hasn't worked, would we change anything, are we going to adapt it, and is this going to become permanent? Because it's not a done deal.
See, I think for me as well, actually, all businesses, not just talking about HR there, but all what you've just described is actually what we should be doing as a business as a whole constantly anyway, surely. Like, we should always be reflecting and looking at whatever we're implementing, not just around HR, but everything as a business as a whole, that you look at, you know, reflect, is that working? Marketing, for example, is that working? No, right, let's adjust that. Like you said, having that, I guess, that preconcept, that idea, right, this is how my company's going to be, this is how I'm going to run it, this is what's going to happen, and then actually 6 months down the line, that's gone on a completely different tangent, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So we need to adapt, and and if anything, COVID has shown us that we've got to be prepared to adapt, because no one had that in their business plan, did they?
Nope. What were those 2 years about? Let's go.
Yeah.
It's strange you say that, because I actually had January 2021 for me was upscale the business, and I had very set parameters about my business before that point, related around family and what I wanted to achieve and what my having it all was about. But January 2021 was, my son would have then been at secondary school, settled for a term, and that was then my time to get a little bit back. I anticipated that he wanted me a little bit less, that he was going to start becoming more independent. He was coming 13, heading towards 13 at the time. He's nearly 14 now. And then we were in this tier system of, are we in lockdown? Are we not in lockdown? Are we in lockdown after Christmas, before Christmas? Who's getting out of their zone before they get locked out? What are we doing? And then we suddenly got this, yes, we're homeschooling. And I'd already committed to some networking, paid networking groups. And I was like, do you know what? There's never a right time to do it. There is always a reason not to do something.
Absolutely.
So if you let that reason be your decision-making factor, then you're not actually ever going to do anything. So that. January 21, homeschooling, yet again. Never let me do that again. God, I know that aged me massively. But I still upscaled the business.
Amazing.
And I still went ahead with that because no one's ever told me if I can't do something, I kind of will. And I just thought, well, COVID's not going to do that. I'll manage. We'll work it out. Fortunately, I have a great kid. He has a great work ethic as well. He was brilliant at just kind of cracking on. And then when he wasn't cracking on, he was on my sofa, and boy, that kid can tell you how to do redundancy processes and tell you life skills he learned there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he can.
Brilliant.
He'll start.
So he's a new employee now as well.
Well, you joke about that. He does. He's actually named as the IT director because through that, he was 13, nearly 14 now. But through that whole time of Zoom, when suddenly we're adapting, and you're doing meetings, and I'm just like, I can't hear anything. Where's the volume gone? I can't see, And I'd be like, where's the nearest teenager? He's in his room. Calm down. And one time, hilariously, really, really important, really, really, I was feeling like big business, bit of an imposter syndrome, right? I'm doing big business. I've tidied the office and everything. And I just couldn't get the Zoom to work, and I didn't realise he was sunbathing. And so I said, I'm just going to get my IT to sort this out. And before I had time to turn the camera off, he dashed in just his board shorts and his bare chest as a teenager, tapping away. And I'm like, I do apologise. I'm terribly sorry. So other people had cats and cats' mums. I had topless teenagers.
IT directors.
IT directors coming in and sorting my IT issues out, which is...
I love it.
As you do.
But that's great for, I always think it, with the kids and them being a business owner and seeing you work in that sort of environment and that sort of aspect. I do feel that there's, we can inspire our children in that way, to run a business and that, because I don't think, I never had a upbringing where my parents were entrepreneurial at all. They both worked with really strong work ethic, which they instilled in me, which I'm so grateful for, because that's what's got me, I guess, where I am. But from an entrepreneurial side, no, it wasn't like I could never run my own business. That was never a mindset thing. But I think it's great that hopefully I'll do the same with my kids, and you're clearly doing with yours.
Yeah, I think you obviously clearly are shaped from where you've come from. I absolutely kind of am a product of looking at the experience I had as a child. And I think the biggest thing that shaped me is actually I lost my mum at a very young age. I was only 7 when she died. And that, obviously, a huge impact at the time, huge impact growing up. But a lot of people always ask me, going, oh, did you miss your mum? It's like, well, clearly. But at the same token, I didn't, because I was too young to know any different.
Yeah, sure.
And it isn't until certain life events that come through that you kind of sit there and you go, actually, that's when I could have done with it. And things like, weddings, birth of my child and all of this. But actually, I think one of the biggest things that shaped it was what I wanted with my life and the work-life balance, and that myself and my husband, he's massively supportive, was that I don't have that many memories of my mum.
Yeah.
The ones I do have are really rock solid and probably slightly crazy, like too young to remember. I'll say stuff and I go, God, yeah, I remember when we went to that holiday and there was that big road before we crossed to the beach. And my dad's like, you were 2. Yeah. It's like, I think I kind of locked them in.
Sure.
Core locked them in because I knew I had to, because that was all I had.
Yeah.
So a big thing for me is about having it all, is about what I can do as a family and the memories I can make for my family should something or one of us not happen. And I don't mean that in a really horrible, because I'm a really positive person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we just don't know. And I guess a product of that is we just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. You just don't know when you walk out the door, or, you know, you could get an illness. Yeah. And I just really, really wanted to build a life for my family that meant that I raised my child.
I love that.
And so my having it all, which is entirely different from anyone else's having it all, is having an amazing husband that also has huge work ethic, works really hard, really excelling at his high level of what he's doing in a more regular business. I'd say 9 to 5. He certainly doesn't work 9 to 5, but more 9 to 5 salaried job. Sure. So our son has that as if that's a career path. He's really worked. He's stayed in one element of career as an engineer. You know, high level now. And so you can see that career progression. Our son sees that side of it. And then he's got this mental mum that just does crazy stuff. But I never missed pick up at nursery. I never missed the pick up at primary school. I was there as sports day. I was in the PTA. I was the one that said, yeah, I'll coach the rugby team. Yeah. I'll, get involved and look after the kids. I'll make sure that I get myself then trained up and qualified to do that side of things. And that I earn the money that I earn to go on nice holidays, to take him to events. Yeah. I get to take him to amazing things within rugby. Luckily, they all love rugby, and he loves rugby. So handy. He also likes cricket. Not so sure about that one, but we're really lucky. We're all peas in a pod. We literally the weekend surrounded by sport. Sky
amazing.
Sports subscription, BT, the whole shebang, all of it.
Love that.
And it can be any sports. I mean, God, we've been watching. We even got to watching competitive marble racing in lockdown when there was no sport. That's Marbile.
There you go.
Oh my God, Formula Marbile was just the best thing on YouTube. But giving him those experiences and those life memories for me that's my having it all.
Yeah.
And I could work 12 hours a day and drive a Bentley or whatever, that's not my having it all. If that's what you want to do, if anyone else wants to do that, all power to them. Just find what motivates you, what is your identifier as having it all.
Love that.
And then work to that.
That is such a powerful thing for me, because I talk about it on here a lot, and around the narrative around what success looks like to people, and I love the way you describe it as having it all. And it's not financially based. It's not about the material things that we do, and a lot of people. And again, I always refer to myself I was doing this interview 10 years ago, my narrative around success would have been a lot different to what it is these days. It was.
But I think that is really fascinating though, because I do think age, and as you move through, sort of, I'm late 40s now, and I think your perspectives do massively change.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think my perspectives in terms of having it all have changed, because if you think, my son's nearly 14, so my ideals 15 years ago when I was pregnant were exactly the same. And, I'm very open about talking about this. I think women need to be. I had real difficulty conceiving, lots of fertility treatment, a very difficult birth. I was very unwell. And then he was very unwell and had surgery at 14 weeks old. Wow, yeah. So even back then, 15 years ago, like mid-30s, early 30s, that's still that same fundamental thing of shaping is like, why on earth would I want to go out to work for 10, 12 hours a day and have someone else raise my child when I've just done that?
Yeah.
And I think but you can still frame it. But I think for me, it's slightly possibly also my rebellious side, because I've never conformed. Really,
well, I'm keen to talk, because one of the things I was really intrigued to chat to you about, and that we spoke about that day, was exactly that. Like you was privately educated, you know. You I think from your description of your childhood and growing up and what that looked like to you, it was, you know, a very privileged sort of upbringing, and like you say, had that private education, and there was possibly an expectation of what path you was going to take within society, and you decided not to do that.
I tend to. It's a common theme through my life. Yeah,
so talk to me about that. Tell me about it.
I mean, I had amazing opportunities. I had an amazing education, really, really strong foundations educationally. But we are talking the 80s and end of 70s, 80s, 90s, and there was still that expectation of, especially going to a girls' school, even from a really young age at my prep school in Windsor. We did a lot of stuff at the castle. We waved a lot of flags. A lot of looking sweet in a boater. There are pictures somewhere. I am never going to show them.
I've got to get them on the podcast somehow. We need to.
Not entirely sure. And there were certain things there that we were taught about being a lady and how ladies would perform. My secondary school was a little bit more open-minded, but when we say that, we've got to put it into the perspectives of, we still had very structured education. I remember we had one lesson around sex education to discuss whether we might have sex education, and a letter was going home to our parents. That letter obviously didn't go down. This was when we were about a week before we were about to do GCSEs.
Yeah.
So leaving a little bit late. Never heard from again. I'm taking it that letter didn't go down too well within the parent society, but it was never heard from again. And the subjects that we learned were, Latin and English and history and science if you were good at it. And we tried, I say we, a couple of us slightly rebellious were sort of asking about whether we could do business studies at A-level, and that was no, that wasn't going to be part of the curriculum. So it was very much more those traditional subjects, with a view that they were looking at Oxbridge entrance, and then kind of what were you going to do with what you chose as your subject. And a lot of it was around, to be fair, there were a few that were really great, and we've got some of the school friends I'm still in touch with, amazing doctor, those kind of professions were kind of, they were good.
Sure.
But a lot of it was sort of English and history, and you could be a teacher or, and a lot of it was, and the expectation was exactly like our parents did. I was very fortunate. My mum, before she died, she did work. She worked at the BBC. She was a bit of a maverick. Maybe that's where I get it from. But when she had the children, it was expected that she stopped working, and she volunteered for Meals on Wheels. And that was really kind of the expectation coming through. And I just thought, nah, that's not for me. And I want to work in the music industry, and I just want to go and just do my own thing. And so I ended up at art college.
Do you think it was maybe, although your mum passed away when you were 7, do you think that from that young age there was something there, like seeing that she was slightly different from the norm and going out work,
Yeah, I think so. My dad is really close to, like, he's of that kind of that age where he's friends for life. He's, there's some people, like my mum's best friend from university, he's still very good friends with. And I see her quite often as well. And he calls himself my godfather. I don't think that was ever formalised, but my dad's best friend from school, has been amazing, and he often just sits there and gets a bit teary and goes, God, you're your mother. You're just your mother. And it does ask that real nature-nurture question, because I only had her in my life for 7 years. She was very ill for about 5 of those.
Wow.
So you have to ask that nature-nurture of how much did I just just inherently get from her.
Yeah, of course.
To do behave, because they're like, oh, you're so like her, your enthusiasm. And you know, when my mum gave up work, she still then volunteered for Meals on Wheels, as it was then. I don't know if that exists anymore. But, you know, the kids were at primary school, so it was like, and even though she was ill, she was still doing something else. And I can see those traits. I can see myself, you know, I volunteer a lot at grassroots rugby. I give a lot of time over for that side of things. I can see why people who've knew my mum from when she was young can kind of sit there and say, yeah, you're like your mum. So yeah, it's fascinating.
It's really interesting. I think. What's your take then, like on because you obviously, like you said, from private education, but you know, very traditional education in that sense. Those type of. What are your thoughts around education now, and like the way the curriculum is and what that looks like? Like, do you still, like, I'm not obviously bashing education, but do you think that they're, you know, because you've gone down that route and then gone, I'm going to go on my own business. I'm not going to do any of these things I'm supposed to potentially, the route I'm supposed to go down. And, you know.
I'm not going to go to university and meet my husband. No.
These are the things, you know what I mean? They're the types. So in my head, I'm looking at thinking, but I'm just keen to see what you sort of think around education now, and do you think that the system as a whole and the way people learn needs to maybe be looked at, or what's your thoughts?
Actually. I think I do think there needs to be a bit of a shake-up, and I think the big problem we've got is the whole point of academies and things like that, they've got it wrong. The use of academies is a really negative thing. It's a failing school that needs rescuing, that suddenly then becomes academized, and it's profit. Sure. You know, it's not supposed to be for profit and blah blah blah. And I've done a contract for an academy group. Interestingly enough, at my interview, the first thing I said to them was, by the way, I don't believe in academization and I don't believe in this structure, so tell me why you want me to come and work for you. Wow, okay. Kind of laid the groundwork.
Yeah, of course.
As you do. But then I've always done that, because even with my business, when I work part-time, I would go into clients and say, I work 9:30 to 2:30 Monday to Thursday. If that's not enough for you, that's fine. I'm not offended. I'm just not, this isn't the right relationship. That doesn't mean I'm crap or I'm not good at my job or that you're not a great client. It's just this relationship isn't right. And the amount of people that would turn around and just go, yeah, I still want to work with you, we'll make it work, was more than... There were negatives, and there were some really sexy negatives of you'll never make it in business if with an attitude like that. It's like, yeah, I kind of have. But overwhelmingly, but back to the education thing. I don't think we can kind of do a one size fits all. I don't dislike the private system. I'm a product of it. I don't horrifically dislike it. I think some things need to change in it. But I think a lot of education's trying to meet the needs of too many children that are too different. And from a parent of an over-excelling child, he's very good at sport. He's also bright. He's in top sets for everything, excelling across a broad spectrum. I want him to be pushed. I want him to be challenged. I don't want him... He's massively competitive. Sadly, the I'm competitive with myself from me and the external I'm going to beat you competitive from my husband is all culminated in one bubbly mess. But I don't want the participation award for him. He needs that competition.
Yeah, sure.
But I get that there's also parents of kids that need the participation, and they need a bit more of a constructive approach, and they need a bit more of an adaptable approach. And it's like, actually, you know, if they're struggling to get to grips with actually doing the English homework, why are you trying to make them do French at the same time? Get some key core principles in. Down to, have we invested enough in special educational needs that actually then really works for those? Is the right place for a child individually that might have some challenges? They actually do thrive better in a mainstream school, but actually others don't, and we certainly don't have enough places for those and systems I feel that education is being pushed down this trying to mould everyone, one thing that everyone's got to try and be spat out of.
That's where I think I potentially have a problem with it, is exactly that. Like, because everyone learns in a different way, everyone absorbs content in a different way, everyone absorbs, you know what I mean? So but trying to say this is a curriculum that you've got to stick to. That's going to, and even the curriculum as a whole, and the certain things that, of course, we've got to have fundamentals with English and maths and a fundamental understanding of those. But how deep do you have to go into that when you're talking like trigonometry and things like that? What you're going to use? Where does that stop?
I mean, who's used it apart from unless you do maths? Well, my husband uses it every day, but apart from him, no one. But I think, I mean, it's like, okay, I randomly. One of the really good things from the 80s private school was we did this lesson called civics. Now, a lot of people go, look at you, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I guess it's the nearest you're going to get to it now is kind of citizenship. And we learn about how the House of Commons works and how the House of Lords works and how laws are passed. Possibly because then we maybe pick the person with the right title or the right politician to marry it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't know what their purpose for teaching us it was. But we also learned about... We did learn about the monarchy, actually, quite heavily. We were quite... I suppose the area we grew up in. But we also learned a little bit around that kind of... that government, that politics, that structure, how voting works. And I think that school and education could take that a little bit further now. I mean, I think kids need to know what a pension is, 100%. What a mortgage is.
100%.
Don't get a credit card with an APR. What does an APR mean? You ask me, like a 17-year-old that's really going to... There'll be a few cocky ones that have got it. But, and it's understanding that payday loans don't work and at the moment it's down to parents, and not all of the parents have that educational tool to kind of teach their kids of, there's your phone and that's got in-app purchases. Well, actually, what does that mean and how much is that going to cost and what's it going to do for you? And
life skills that they can actually relate to. And as I say, you're taking stuff. That type of education and that type that is valuable, that they will use in their life, whatever happens in their life, whatever career path they go down, those are life skills that they will need.
And I think as well, it's society and, again, kind of politicians and when I say society as a whole, that kind of whole hierarchical structure that we have, is changing the perception of the value of things. And it's looking at people and going, okay, you're a really high achieving academic. You are a really high-achieving sports person. If you went to an academy or a private school that was for high achievers, that doesn't make you better or worse than someone that isn't academic. It just means that their talents lie somewhere else and in a different form. And we still have this real perception that private school clever equals better than maybe someone who, if they were learn business skills or mortgages and credit cards and life skills or politics, you might find someone who's like the greatest politician on planet Earth that went to an academy school that was academised because it was failing, but they haven't had that opportunity. And it's about levelling off and changing the perception of those opportunities.
I love that. I think that's a great way to describe it. It is the preconception of what society puts on. Like you said, you automatically speak to someone who's privately educated and think, like you said, whether it's a better life or whatever that look, but what is better? Because ultimately, what do we want out of life? Like you're talking about what your success is and all what that looks like. If happiness is the key to that, it's nothing to do with your financial or your academically intelligent you are, or wherever that balance is at.
I come across, and I call them the Range Rover wankers, and I come across the guys in sport. You come across them quite a lot. People attending, a lot of the parents that are bringing their kids. My kid's coming to a Harlequins camp. X amount. It's a prowess of my kids here. They've paid them to go on a camp, and we're giving them some skills. It's fun. And they'll turn up in the latest Range Rover or Aston Martin or whatever, and I just kind of look at them and just go, I've had loads of those in the playground. Those parents, it hasn't changed, just the brand of the car and the size of the car, and it that's great if that's what they need. But it doesn't diminish the fact that what I need and what my success is any different. It doesn't mean it's any worse. It doesn't mean you're better than me. And everyone has, and we talk about this a lot, and we talk about this massively in sport at the moment. Something I'm really, really passionate about is the unconscious bias.
Yeah.
And it's that language and your automatic assumptions, whether you realise it as a bias or you really don't realise it as an unconscious bias.
Yeah.
And for women's sport at the moment, it's huge.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it can apply to anything, and it's like I can walk into somewhere, I will start talking, and people hear how I speak, and they make an assumption.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've done that in a different assumption for you.
Absolutely.
But
the Essex twang, it gets me a certain...
the Essex twang, the Essex Surrey twangs, it's just never good. Berkshire borders. Yeah. But my respect for you is absolutely no different.
Yeah.
Based on... And I'm sure you won't mind me sharing your turning up where everyone else is wearing suits and a baseball cap last week. But then you absolutely rocked it. and I actually have more respect for that than slightly... I'm not a massive rebel. I did dye my hair pink once. That was on accident. That was at uni. But I'm not a huge rebel in the traditional sense. But I kind of like that, do your thing.
I think, look, the one thing, especially over the last year, doing it's episode 35 now, and people I've spoke to, and the one thing that keeps coming through, and the one is that whatever we're doing in life, it's got to be that we live a life true to ourselves. Surely, if that everyone I've spoke to in that book, the big 5 Regrets of the Dying, the biggest regret of the dying is that I didn't live a life true to myself. Like, if that is it, and I'm going to lie down on my deathbed, whatever that looks like, whatever pound notes I've got in the bank, whatever business I've run, or whatever I've contributed in some way, as long as I can lie and go, you know what, I'll give it a good go and I've done it on my terms and who I am, then I think I'll be okay with that. I think.
Do you know, it's also we use this word, and this is a word really coming through an awful lot. Authenticity.
Yeah, massive. Yeah.
Just living your authentic life, and it's like we were at an event last week.
Yeah.
Amazing venue, Twickenham Stadium. Yeah. I mean,
let's give Brad a shout out. Brad networked my club. Great summer social. Loved it.
Epic night. Epic night. Do you know I wasn't actually initially going to go?
Okay.
Bearing in mind, Twickenham Stadium.
I was going to say, it's got your name over it.
Well, you'd think. I've actually been there a lot recently. Sure. So I was there for the Premiership final a couple of weeks ago, and then at Harlequins we had our big summer kickoff, which is what our new, now hopefully going to continue, summer event, where it's the last home game of the season is moved from the Stoop over the road. Yeah. We had, God, I get amazing experiences. It's not the first time I've done this, because we've done this with Big Game an awful lot, but we do coaching clinics on the pitch. We run guards of honour, so I'm stood in the middle of the pitch when all the boys run out, herding cats or kids with flags. And that we get to demo referee kids at half time. So I've refereed on the pitch at Twickenham Stadium quite a few times now. And then I thought, oh God, do I really want to stand next to it and have a barbecue? Because, oh God, I've been up there so many times. And then the FOMO completely kicked in when I realised he was going. And actually it completely changed the perspective of me of, I'm actually really privileged to do these things. I'm really lucky to do this. And actually it's the people at that event that I really wanted to make it. And there was a little train posse going, and I was like, I don't want to miss that. And for me it really kind of made me going, oh my God, I didn't want to be like a Twickenham wanker. And then I ended up turning up being a Twickenham wanker, because I was going, I'm not going to go. And I just actually, no. Take the privilege, take and go. That's an amazing opportunity. I'm so lucky to do the things I do and have the experiences I had. And, I was on a keynote speaker webinar yesterday with Sir Clive Woodward. We had lunch with Mike Tyndall not long ago. And you could get a little bit complacent and think, well, this is my life. This is what I do. And no, this is great. We're living our best lives. Actually say it what it is. I was a fangirl. This is amazing. Don't not be authentic and just be like, oh yeah, of course, I was just lunching the other week. Don't do it. Just say what it is.
I think that's it. I think it's recognising what... we all make choices in our lives, whatever that looks like. And of course, we've running businesses and doing it. And sometimes they're the things we put on social media. I've just been to Twickenham Stadium. People don't necessarily then see the 2:00 in the morning emails that you're trying to sort out and stuff that you're doing in the background. But I I do think that the plus side to that, exactly that going, this is great, this is, and be proud of that, and go, you know what, I've chosen this path, but it's an enjoyable one, and you can have fun. As much as there's stresses and strains that come with it,
absolutely.
On the other side, there is a great life there, and there are opportunities that, if you're open to those opportunities, they're there for you, aren't they?
No, absolutely. And actually, it is interesting what you say about that social media side of things, and you do your networking. And LinkedIn's changed from God when I was first on it 4,000 years ago, and it is becoming more of a social network than just this is my business profile and find me and give me a job. But again, I try not to bleed, and it's very, very difficult. And you go down the Instagram route of life, and you don't want to show the kind of more vulnerable side of you, I guess. You want to present an image. And in business, you certainly have to present a certain image. But actually, I did.
Do you though? Do you think?
Well,
do you think that and do you think that that's the case, that you can't necessarily present a certain?
I think you have to frame it correctly. And I think different platforms require different frameworks. Okay. So if it's your personal Insta and Facebook and things like that. Now, bearing in mind, we are of the odd generation. Facebook for me is still keeping up with all my family and friends across the world. Course, it's not much. I've got like 100 and something friends. Let's be real. We're not talking any high-level Instagram followers here, but it is just the posting up, the keeping up the kids, sharing the kids' info, that kind of thing. And you kind of show your best life-ish. Things like LinkedIn, where it's about a network, it is still a professional network. And I do think that you can frame it within a professional mindset to show that it's not. I actually did put on the post that got, if anyone who's in any way on our LinkedIns has all seen Brad, big up Brad, the amazing photos from a great night. I framed it in, I am really lucky to be able to do this and call it work. I've had some amazing experiences recently, and I get to call it work. And that's the framing of it. If you are wanting to put something out there that maybe shows your more vulnerable side, or what would be perceived to be a negative, it's how you present that in a professional way. So there's no way of saying, there's no harm in saying, actually, I'm struggling right now. Actually, it's been stressful. But it's, who are you talking to and who is your audience? Are you talking to your best mate who's going to then come around with a bottle of wine and go, come on then, tell me? Or are you putting it out there to say, actually, it's okay for us to say we're stressed, we need help, we need support? I put something out on LinkedIn because the work balance that I was having had shifted, and the workload was too much, which leads me to, I've just taken on an HR admin and bringing on some more associates to make sure I can still do what I want to do and have the balance that I have. And that went out on LinkedIn. It's like, we're expanding. We need more. That is also I need help, but it's framed in the professional way.
I do agree, because I think that I've spoke about it quite a lot recently, and about, I don't necessarily mean to turn up at a networking event, because ultimately people I'd like to think would say I'm quite a positive person. I've generally got a smile on my face. People go, I has things, okay. And prior to lockdown, it was very much like, I has things, great, everything's great. I don't mean to turn up and then when people go, if I am stressed or whatever, and things are getting on top and you spinning some plates, I'm not coping with things at the moment necessarily. But you go and people say, actually, I don't mean to go, I'm having a really bad time. And like you said, it's how you reframe it. I think people can still be vulnerable and still say, actually, things are not great. This is going on at a minute, this is going on. And like you said, I think what I'll take from that and what's quite important is who are you actually trying to speak to? Because some people maybe, and I'm not Gemini, but some people you can maybe put it out there, and because you want to get some form of reaction or whatever that looks like, if it is just genuinely, look, this is how I'm feeling at the moment, this is the problems I'm having, and I'm just reaching out, because because you've built a big network, then people might come to you and go, mate, didn't realise you were struggling a little bit with that. Look, I can help with X, Y and Z. And that might be a...
So there's and there's a really big thing. So one of the things I've started doing recently was I've started the RFU England Coaches Mentoring Award. Right. And this is rugby focused, but the crossover to life and business is huge. Massive.
Yeah. Because from a rugby point, I mean, let's jump into that about the sport and rugby, because you've played rugby at a very high standard. You know, we've already mentioned, with Harlequins and Dorking, and talk to me about rugby. Talk to me about your sporting life, I guess, and that. But mainly, what I'm really keen is exactly what you're alluding to there: is what skills have you taken from your career in rugby into business as well?
Got everything. So getting back into rugby has been child-led, and that they needed a coach and there was no one else, and that was kind of okay. And actually, it's taken me down a path that I thought was closed off to me. You never want to have regrets. However, I wish I was 25 years younger, because the opportunity, I really do, in so many ways. But the opportunities that are available to people coming out of university or going into university even, and looking at the courses and the choices that they're doing. When I was coming out of university, even the men were not professional rugby players. That had not happened.
Yeah, sure.
So the opportunities of coaching and community and foundation and all of these things it just doesn't even exist.
Yeah, sure.
So my regret is that I was born at a different time, maybe. And that actually, if I could do it again, I probably would have looked at a career down that path. Yeah. And actually, I then recently reframed that into, I want to do more with my coaching. I've kind of sat in COVID. We were very limited. It's been really, really tough.
Yeah, of course.
Many seasons affecting. You see the effect on the kids. We've been really fortunate at Dorking Youth. In our age group, we didn't lose that many kids, and we actually gained more coming out of COVID. Really, really strong squad. Really great to see. And massive growth in the women's and the girls section. There's been so much put into that side of things, which is fantastic. And I kind of got to a point, the business is doing really well. Business is expanding, and that's kind of doing its own thing nicely. Yeah. And actually, like we say, the expansion of having a bit more time to myself, and now my son's nearly 14, it's actually, I want to get something back for me.
Yeah, I love that.
And I was looking at the options of coaching, and that there were jobs going of, do I just want to go and do a part-time coaching job, and really cut the business down or completely change my life? And I was like, yeah, don't be slightly ridiculous. But it isn't about not doing something and not taking the opportunity. It's about looking at, well, I can't do that opportunity, so what can I do to then try and make it work with the parameters of what I've got right now? And as my son puts it, I had my midlife crisis. I don't think it's a midlife crisis. I just think, it's an itch, a scratch, or whatever it might be. And I just went, you know what? Dorking women play at inner warrior level. It's so inclusive. I met many of the team. I met one of the female coaches when she brought the girls up to a festival at Harlequins. And I just went, yeah, go on then. When they said, do you want to play? I was like, go on, let's give it one more go. And then that led into, actually, can you play a coach? Which then led into this mentoring award that I've started, which is then also going to, when I finish that, lead into doing the advanced level coaching certificate with the old level 3, as it used to be, which will leave me in quite a small number of women that have actually achieved that level.
Amazing.
But I'm really, really, really pleased that I've chosen Dorking and we're involved with Dorking, because our director of rugby, Armand, give you a shout out, Armand, he is absolutely on board in bringing that parity for women and men, and really looking at reframing language and the website and how it's presented, and that the women have the same. We are women's seniors against the men's seniors. We're at the same level. We've got women colts, not just the under 18s. Yeah. The language is the same. We have access to the director of strength and conditioning, who's probably going to hurt us through pre-season. Lovely guy, Dan, but oh my God, he's going to hurt us. And
because you must have seen a massive shift and change in that, then, I'm assuming, from playing rugby 15, 20 years ago to where it is now, women in the sport.
Well, yeah, it was probably even longer ago, school and uni, really. But, I mean, when I first started going on courses with the RFU, and even the basics, the ready for rugbies and the safeguarding things you have to do. You just have to do them.
Yeah, sure.
I was always the only woman. And invariably I am the only woman, and sadly still, occasionally, might get one other woman
Does that, is there any, like, from your point, like, does that not faze you in any way, like, going into that environment? You're obviously a really. I was going to say, and I would expect that to be the answer almost.
No,
because you're such a confident person.
Oh God, yeah, but I still have anxieties. Don't get anything wrong that I come across as confident. I am a confident person, but absolutely walking into a room full of men. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, walking through a room full of men is very different from when it is now.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, sexism in the game has been massive, and I have been subjected, and still, unfortunately, to this day. Again, we talked about this unconscious bias. It's still massively there. It's just less obvious. So one of the worst things that I think ever happened, I mean, there's been quite a lot, but one of the things that really sticks out was many years ago when I first started working for Quins, we did a camp. I'm at the stoop. I'm in the whole shebang-a-boo. I got it all on. I'm the only female coach, but we've all got the kit. We've all got the lanyard. We're all in it. And this guy, we're going to call him Range Rover Dad. Why not? Range Rover Dad comes up to me and goes, "So are you the childcare for the day? Will you be looking after them at lunch?"
Wow.
And I kind of looked at him and just went, "Why have you asked me that?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I just thought that's you. Are you here for childcare purposes?" I said, "No, I'm a fully qualified rugby coach.
Wow.
This isn't childcare. This is a rugby camp, a skills camp." And he kind of looked at me and it was a bit like, "Oh, right, okay, oh, okay." And I just, that wasn't unconscious bias, that was just bias. That was just sexism, pure and simple. It is hilarious. What is great about a lot of the RFU courses are they're very practical, and you role play an awful lot, which involves quite a lot of touch rugby. And you can often win quite a few points within the first beginning part of the game because the guys go, "Ooh, where do I touch her? There's only one woman. How do I do touch?" And then the next thing you know, I might have got a little bit too feisty and touch has kind of gone into a bit of a shoulder, and they're like, "Okay, right, this is where it stands. We're fine." And you do. It's actually
but you have to almost. Is it that you almost have to earn that respect from them in that sense? Or but I'm just saying, like, they look at it and go,
"No, it's kind of the other way round. It's almost like in those scenarios, it's almost like they're asking permission. They're not quite sure how to deal with you. I know how to deal with me, but they don't quite know. These old in my day coaches, you know, I played, I'm now coaching, they kind of, they're not entirely, or they certainly weren't entirely sure how to deal with a woman. And so it's for you to lead them and guide and say, "This is okay. This is all right."
Sure.
And it kind of almost is, it's giving them kind of permission to say, "Oh yeah, okay, I've not done this, I've not played rugby with a woman before, but that's okay." And certainly now, I mean, we have a thriving touch match group at Dorking that has, it could be up to 100 people on a Wednesday night over different age groups, mixed, really mixed. I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but there's a really good mixed women to men ratio and things like that, to the point where now there's touch tournaments as well. So again, if anyone thinks that rugby is not for them, and I did a little bit of recruitment drive because we have got massive ambitions for the women's side for Dorking. So if anyone is in the Surrey area or northern Sussex and is a woman of any age, trust me, any age, that just wants to give it a go and just thinks, "I really love this," and the momentum of women's sport at the moment, and if you just think, I kind of fancy it, let's see if I can tackle someone, just get in touch, and we can take it from there. We've got absolute novices, never seen a rugby ball, never touched a rugby ball.
Love that.
And so just come in and join. And like I say, you can do it at a touch level, you can do it right up to full contact if you fancy. And like, you know, I had one of my worst injuries. I had a triple fracture of my arm and a dislocation of the elbow at the same time, was from an ex-professional male rugby player getting a little bit too tasty and feisty in a touch match on an RFU course, tackling me from behind and landing on my elbow. So when, you know, you can give them that permission, it can get quite fun.
Like smashing my arm.
Smashing my arm.
So much fun.
It's fine.
So much fun. That's so much. But what then? So, because obviously you've been involved in the game at them different levels and now obviously coaching. But just talk to me. I guess like give me a couple of key traits that you've taken from sport, being involved in a sporting environment, that changing and whatever into business.
Do you know, actually, it was Sir Clive Woodward that put it absolutely best. There is absolutely no difference between sport and business, because at the end of the day, it's just getting the best out of people.
Love that.
And that is just it.
Yeah.
There are so many things that you, as either a player or a coach, anyone who's participating in sport can take with them into any part of their life, in work, whether they're going to be an entrepreneur, business, family, whatever it might be. You know, you will learn communication skills. You will learn how to work on your own and set your own targets and your own goals, but you can also potentially work in a team if you're in a team sport. You will look to manage those other personalities. Even if you're doing a solo sport, you will have coaches, you will have PTs, you'll have physios, that you manage those relationships, you manage your time. If you're not professional, how do you manage your diary? How do you get in your, are you working your nutrition? Are you planning? All of these time management skills, all of these, you're negotiating your situation. Well, actually, I can't turn up to work today because I got smashed in the face on Sunday. Well, actually, I've got to negotiate myself out of that. All of those skills come from sport. And as a coach, the mentoring side of things, the leadership skills that you can develop, not just managing people, but actually leading people.
There's a difference there, isn't there, between, and I always, again, I'll relate back to the Sunderland, but the difference between elite. I had Mark Woolley on here the other day, and we released his episode Monday, but it was fascinating for me because I would see him as a leader, built a global brand, whereas, not being detrimental to myself, it was my first business, but the learnings I guess I took from that is I wasn't a leader, I was a boss. I went in with a preconception of what that looks like, and there is a huge difference. That's what
Massive
I really
difference.
take from what you're saying is about true leadership, and I guess from you playing at the level you played at, coaching as well as a coach, leading, and then relating all that as a business owner and being a leader as well. Yeah,
it is, and it was interesting, and starting this mentor course actually reminded me how much I do put into the business. And even though this was purely about, we're looking at coaching other coaches or looking at coaching players, not necessarily elite players. I'm not actually that interested in mentoring an elite player. I'm actually more, I don't think the impact would be so great. I'm actually more interested in looking at mentoring someone who's starting a journey or coming back into a journey or had maybe some adversity with injury, and looking at imparting the knowledge that I have to support them to find out how they're going to come to that journey. Those skills are leadership skills. Those skills are just something you're going to take through. But also there's another thing with sport, and again, family-orientated side of it, is that I know my son's massively into sport. He's really annoying. He's that kid that goes, oh, what's this sport? What's the rules? I'm great at it. And you're just like, oh, for God's sake, not another. No, he's not doing that. Like, and the coach goes, is he interested in playing this? No, it's all for fun. Thanks very much. But I know, especially through rugby. Rugby is his passion. Cricket's his passion. He likes a bit of basketball, tennis, all these other bits and pieces. I can send him off to you. Okay, he wants to go and play for England, thinks he's going to get scouted. You never know, but you've got to have a backup. So when he goes to university, I know he's going to sign up to the rugby team, and he's got 60 mates instantaneously. They've got something to talk about. They've got a commonality. It's
a community straight away.
Away. So that whole nervousness of those situations for him, I kind of know, and sport can do that. It also really helps, bizarrely, within networking. Because we do the whole businessy, what do you do in your business? Or what do you do with this? And I'm like, I know HR and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. Well, also, I've got a hobby job of I'm a rugby coach. Really now, I can play on it, of the female rugby coach thing. You can play on that side of things, but there's levels. And they do this thing with the mentoring about the triangle of rapport. And that the first is the chit-chat. Hey, how are you doing? What's the weather like? Because we always ask about the weather. And then you kind of delve into a little bit more information, and it's a little bit more fact-finding-y. And then you go into thoughts and feelings. And as you move through all of those things, as you build that relationships, builds the rapport.
Yeah.
And, that interesting fact, I guess, that makes me different in business is that I am a female rugby coach alongside an owner, managing director.
I love that. And they're the things that do, because fundamentally, and I've said this, and we've done the whole thing with Inside Stories recently, and everything we learn about county business, ultimately people buy from people. That's the thing. Whatever business we're in, whatever we do, over 13 years, different businesses I've run, everything is people buy from people, and and it's building that relationship, that rapport, as you say, the skill. But I'm the same as you, like playing football at the level I did, and just being around football for as long as I was, and not being in a changing room and a banter and all the stuff that comes with that, the confidence to then walk into a crowded room where you don't know people and just go. The first day I walked into Thamesmead when I just signed from, you don't know anyone, and you straight away you just get involved, and that's how you have to do. And honestly, that taking that into a networking environment and being able to communication, isn't it?
But managing those personalities, you've walked into a locker room, and you're not going to like everyone.
Yeah.
And actually, you're going to hear things. And trust me, female locker rooms can be a bit feisty too.
I'm sure.
But you're going to hear things that maybe you don't necessarily agree with. You're going to hear opinions. You're going to hear the way that the language that people use that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
And actually being able to manage that relationship and go, I don't necessarily agree with you, but out on that pitch, I've got to work with you. I've got a massive, and especially with rugby, an element of trust, especially as a forward in a scrum, in a ruck. Don't kick me in the face. Who's got my back when I'm tackling someone? In that scrum as a unit, as a pack, everyone's working. They call it a pack for a reason. Someone might have expressed some really horrific views, but on that pitch, I've then got to work with them. And I think that's actually one of the things that we're really struggling with post-COVID in a business world, and why we're seeing in HR so many grievances, disciplinaries, issues, employment relations problems, is that people have forgotten, everything's been polarised, everyone's been separated in opinions. And then, we've had Brexit and Farage, we've got Trump, and bringing not necessarily populist views, giving it a voice again. And we've got vaccine, not vaccine. Everything is a polar opinion. And then we've all come back into this workplace, and we've forgotten how. I keep saying we've forgotten how to office. I'm gonna trademark this. I'm saying it now. I'm trademarking it. Forgotten how to office. People have forgotten that you don't have to agree with someone's opinions and views, and as long as they're not doing anything offensive in the workplace or against you or bullying and harassment or anything like that, but they can have their own opinions and views, but you still have to work with them and find a way to work with them, because you're not going to get on with everyone in life, and anyone who thinks that is very naive. And if you've been in sport, there's so many things that you will have learned of. There's going to be people that you didn't like in that locker room, but you needed them on the pitch or in your support team or on your bench. And actually, I think a lot of people could really do with relearning that coming back from COVID. The other big thing that you would take to business from it is I think people who have been involved in sport in any way have a better coping mechanism for failure.
Okay.
And I know that's and I've heard you speak amazingly and brilliantly about failure.
Failed a lot, so it's easy for me to talk. It's a subject I'm an expert in,
brilliantly, but very openly, very candidly, and massively reflectively, which is so important. Everyone should be able to do that. And I think that if you will have had losses. You will have either played and had losses or coached and had to talk. The amount of team talks I've had to give after a loss to a team. And a lot of people say to me, okay, what do you do? What do you say when it's this bad? And quite a lot of the time, actually just a quiet word of, this hurts, but that's okay. And a lot of the time when we're working with children especially, it's about looking at all of their positives. It's not hiding the negatives, but it's about going, okay, that's not worked out, but these were it's reframing it. These were the really good bits. These are the works on. And obviously there's the Nelson Mandela quote. No one loses. You're either winning or learning. And that's, absolutely. I've said it for years. Many people say it over and over again. Mistakes are the best thing. I love one of my mistakes are the best thing in the world in training. Because people who make mistakes give us an opportunity to correct them and learn so they don't do them in the match. And it's like a kid can be I tell you what, teenage boys are mean. And, they're like, oh my God, you dropped the ball. Like, you're so stupid. Oh my God, can't even catch a ball. It's like, okay, let's just stop on that. We've made a mistake. But was the mistake theirs or yours? How are we going to work as a team to get this better? Let's have this mistake now so we're not doing it at the match. And it's that reframing of things. And I will quite often, if we're having a festival, we'll quite often have kids festivals before match days at Quins. It's always really bad weather. I think it's destined. I think it's just what happens.
Need the Sam Thomas weather guarantee. That's what you need.
We do need the Sam Thomas weather guarantee. Always sunny. Oh, trust me, some of the weather we've done in sideways snow is just in sleet. It's just in wind has been amazing. But resilient kids playing. There's always seems to be one team that will get tanked, and there's always going to be one that's just having a really hard day. And actually, I will make an absolute promise to go and talk to them. They're the team I will go to the most. Not the winners, not the ones that are having an easy day and smashing it and living life and going, yeah, I'm great, I smashed it at Quins. But actually going to the team and just bringing them all over and in, and the coach is like, why do you want to talk to them? And I was like, let me just have a quick word. And I'm nothing. I'm just a coach. I'm just there. I just happen to be in all the kit and all the gear, the full kit thing. So they look at you and just go, you're in the full kit. And you do represent the club. And just by saying to me, going like, you know what? Actually, that last match, you could have given up and none of you did. You all kept your heads up. You played to that last. Yeah, I know it didn't go your way. But the skills that you showed and actually the improvement you showed, you never stopped trying. That makes me, I'm really impressed by that. And you walk away from them and like one of the kids will be just like, oh my God, the Harlequins coach turned around and told me that they were impressed by something I did. That's what they've taken away from that day. They could have been the worst player on the pitch, but that's what they've taken away. That's the responsibility that you have as a coach.
I love that. I love it. And I relate that even to our own kids and allowing them to make mistakes, but actually going, you know what, I've always, no matter what our kids do, that, you know what, I was like your son, I was into every sport. And whatever I played, I was never brilliant at, but I could play. I could pick up a tennis racket and be okay at it. I could play badminton, whatever it was. And I was expecting, again, having twins, I was like, what? They're both going to be. Neither of them into any sport whatsoever. I'm like, they're 7.
You got the opposite end.
I've still got, we've still
got time. You got time.
They're
They'll
still
find
young.
something.
They're still young. But you go. But whatever they do, whatever it is that they do, as long as they give it their best, your best. As long as your best is your best, and you're doing everything you can, there's a positive to take out of that. And as long as they don't give up, like that's something I try and drill into them so much, that just not to give up, just keep going and have that drive and determination, and if it doesn't work out, it's just learn from that and we can be okay, I think.
So one of the things, my kid now is of an age where he's getting very gobby and will turn and go, God, Mum, stop coaching me. But I always made it a really big thing. When he comes home from school, I don't say, oh, how's your day been? And expect him to be able to articulate how his day has been.
Yeah, sure.
I've always asked him from when he was teeny tiny of, what made you smile today? Who made you happy today? And it could be that it was, I played with someone in the playground, and usually invariably it revolves around food. With my child.
Boy, after my own heart there.
5-6 meals a day at least. God, he ate 6 hot dogs last night. I mean, it was insane. But there's always that opportunity to say, well, what went well for you today? And it's like, was there anything that made you a bit sad, or was anything, obviously the language has changed as he got older, but is there anything that didn't go so well? Is there anything you want to talk about? And he'll go, oh my God, this boy pushed me and it really made me sad. And actually, the relationship we now have is that I know more about his moods and moody teenager. God, it's in the house. Kevin and Perry hit large at the weekend. But I understand him more from him telling me those questions than me saying, oh, I think you did that really well today. Quite often asking him, what do you think you did good? Well, What was good today? What wasn't so great? What were you going to do next time? If that happens again tomorrow, what are you going to do? And actually, and the courses and the coaching courses that we go on, they all are open-ended questions. Is like the fundamentals to absolutely everything. And you can apply that in everything. You can apply it to your family, and we're talking about kids. But actually, again, that's just managing a relationship. And that's exactly the same in business when you've got employees or colleagues or networking or clients, is managing that relationship.
So, and you're right, sport, business, home life, everything. So all of them things all link up to relationships, building relationships, what that looks like, relationships and communication, and the skills that you can learn from sport, especially, I guess, but especially more so in a team environment. You get those skills, don't you? You've got to be able to communicate, and you've got to be able to build
and it just comes back to Clive, as he likes to be called, not Sir Clive. In that, business and sports exactly the same. It's just about getting the best out of people.
Love it. And let's just touch quickly before we move on. We'll kind of come up to the final couple of questions. Just before we do it, I know we've touched on culture already, but ultimately, I guess within a business environment, within the sports environment, especially as a coach as well, I guess those sort of skill sets that you take from them, building a strong culture and foundation within a company as well as within a sporting environment. But I'm keen from a HR perspective, I guess, going in, and because it's all about relationships, what you do. Just give me a couple of maybe some of the clients that you've sort of worked with, or things you've seen over the years about some maybe bad culture traits, and maybe one or two good culture traits that you've sort of noticed over there.
Yeah, culture traits, bad practices, are plenty. I guess because of what we do and specialising in small businesses, they're kind of a bit more obvious.
Yeah, sure.
When you've got much bigger, larger organisations, there's lots of layers to it, and the cultures and things change and move. So they are more obvious, and there is a lot. I would say to try and get whatever you choose your culture to be, that is entirely your choice. But the key words I would always say is consistency, transparency, and fairness.
Brilliant.
Because from an HR perspective, we have to be consistent. If you apply, like we talked about it before, if we apply one thing to one person, you apply it to the same. When you get in trouble and you end up in tribunal courts, or people are looking at discrimination, they look at comparators. They compare themselves to someone that was treated differently or the same, or however they wanted it. So consistency across the board. Whatever your message is, it is consistent. The transparency of it as well. A lot of people are a little bit scared to kind of lay their cards on the table a little bit too much with their culture, and actually being open and talking to people. I think it's a little bit gone, this kind of, well, I don't know, it kind of rears its head a little bit every so often, but the whole 80s Wall Street corner office, what's my business card doing? And actually, the more I've been networking over the last 18 months, I've kind of noticed in certain areas there's a little bit of that still creeping in, and you're just like, that real big masculine energy thing going on. And I guess it works in some areas, but actually I think now, especially with small businesses, it's a very fine line and a balance of transparency and openness and communication and being willing to talk and being willing to get that feedback. And again, it goes back to reflection, and that leaders need to reflect and actually reflect on the business, but look at themselves and be open to that feedback. And then fairness is just, God, you could go through the rhetoric and the academic papers on motivators and all, Maslow's hierarchies of needs and all of this. If you do a staff survey and you talk about what motivates people, money might be around the place, but actually fairness and actually being treated fairly is always right up there. And again, with the consistency comes the fairness, and they kind of interlink with each other. Are you being fair to that person? Are you being a fair employer? Are you being fair to a client?
Across the board, I love that.
Across the board.
And that's great advice. And so I guess so many people, like I said, it's something that I guess as a starting point, people starting out, like, you know, entrepreneurs listening to this who may be thinking about starting their own business, those traits that you're talking about right at the starting point, getting that right from a culture is... Yeah.
If you can get that right, it stops me getting the phone calls of, I need to sack someone.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky because he's my best mate. One of the biggest things that we see with small businesses that haven't maybe had any influence of HR or any perception or knowledge of HR themselves is, especially where they've employed their friends. And it is so easy to be done because you get really excited about your passion project and then you get all a little bit over enthusiastic and then you get a little bit too busy and then your mate's like, oh look, I'll come on board, it's okay, and then everything's fine. Or you've brought on staff and they've been with you for quite a long time and you've got a really close relationship that they have become friends and really good friends. And then your business gets to a certain point and a certain size. And one of the hardest things to do is change your mindset, but also change the mindset of that organisation to you are the boss, you are the manager, you are the leader. And they need to see you as that. And quite a lot of the conflict that you get in small businesses is where those lines have blurred. And I always say to someone, like people come to me going, oh, Lola, you know, I've got this situation, I'm going to employ my mate as a sales role, say. And I'm just like, ask yourself if you can employ him or her or them, can you sack him or her or them? And if that would be too difficult or awkward for you to sack them, should you be doing it in the first place?
Because it's hard, isn't it? Because as a leader, but you want to. You also, if it's in your nature, this is where I struggle with a little bit, because if it's in your nature to be actually quite a nice person, you want to be friendly with everyone, and you want to be people's mates and blah, 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 that's great. And that's, again, I'll go back to the salon, but I think, 3 years of not being myself, because I am that type of, I want people to like me, I go out, and that's the type of, love building relationships, I've built businesses on building relationships, blah, blah, blah. You look at that, but I was there, and I felt I had to be this serious person, so I wasn't naturally myself, but there was a disconnect for me where I was like, I've got to be this serious person because I can't be their friend because I've got to be a boss, and that's where and like you said, I think there's a really fine line there between getting that right, of course I can be myself and we can build a relationship and be good friends and be close as an environment, but ultimately we've got a vision here and which is what we're trying to do, and you're going to be part of that. And
it's like, so we kind of we can set parameters around things, and a lot of it, you know, there are actually things like legal, I'm not going to get too boring on legal stuff, but employers' liability around socialising and alcohol and work events. And when does a work event become a private event? And I always say that we, you know, write into policies for work events is, I call it the wedding rule, that within a specified time and place, we will provide you with half a bottle of wine per person or 2 pints of lager or alternative softs. That's kind of what you get as the wedding rule at the wedding breakfast when you go.
Yeah, sure.
It's a reasonable amount to say, you're going to have a nice time and I want, you know, this is a social event on work. But it's not so much that really, especially with food, could cause, and there's always one or two that can't quite handle even a couple of pints. I can't quite understand that myself, you know, but a good rugby girl. But there's always going to be anomalies. But on average, with food, that should be about the right amount that someone's not going to be so drunk that they're out of control and could be a liability. What happens then after that, where you've got those clear parameters, is, you know, their responsibility, different location, and the company's not liable. And for leaders and managers and owners, I say the same thing to them. Do the wedding party rule. Stay for the meal and the half bottle of wine and the 2 pints, then let them go and enjoy themselves. You're still being social, you're still being true to yourself. You don't have to be this serious person and change. But it's knowing...
But don't go breakdancing till 2 o'clock in the morning with them.
Only with your close mates. I'll see you down Revenge later.
Right, look, the one thing obviously I always talk about is work-life balance between the rugby, between the family, between the business. What's it like for you, work-life balance?
It can be chaotic sometimes. You know, it can be busy. We're not a family that tends to sit and do nothing too often. I think it's knowing your parameters. And I've spoken about this with the business when I set it up. I was very, very clear of 9:30 to 2:30 Monday to Thursday. I still am very, very clear. I just have a few more hours to give to the business. But
setting boundaries, you're obviously quite good at your
absolutely setting boundaries. I absolutely firmly believe, I truly firmly believe that the whole ethos of when you're at work, you're in mindset of work. When you're at home, you can do that. That doesn't work. If anyone looks at a working parent and thinks that they're going to separate their headspace, it's unrealistic. And you need to be flexible within that, because if you actually give people the space to be authentically themselves as a working parent, you'll get the most out of them wherever they are, whatever they're doing.
Sure.
For me, to make sure I can achieve everything I want to do, I do set massive boundaries. I have a work phone and I have a home phone. And the work phone is on silent from 4 o'clock every day and goes off at 4 o'clock on Friday and doesn't go back on until 9 o'clock on Monday morning. I missed a social event that I kind of would have loved to have gone to at the weekend because I didn't see it's on my work phone. And it was a work social event. Big up Stuart Moffat. See you later. I was so gutted not to see.
We're having a trip up to Scotland, don't worry.
Yeah, well,
Me and Tom Hooper organised it.
Someone could teach you how to play golf. That would be amazing. But that's okay, because that was not the time for me to look at my phone. And I have missed something, but I'll catch up with Stuart. And
see, that's such an amazing. But are you okay in your head? Are you okay to be able to go, I've switched that phone off at 4. I won't think about it. I'm there. That's my work time's over. I am there. I'm present with the family or going to rugby, whatever it is, and you're able, that your mindset's completely in that. Or is there's
always going to be a bit of leakage. It's always going to creep in, or and it's natural that my husband will come home from work and we'll talk about our day. And yeah, absolutely. Some really stressful situations. We've got quite difficult disciplinaries at the moment. And so there is always that time. But I think by physical boundaries help you clear those mental boundaries. So my LinkedIn is professional. Very, very occasionally I might post something family orientated, but it is very professional around my sport or business or HR. I have an entirely separate profile on Facebook for business as a person than I do from my personal. And Instagram's just me, because I have got a work Instagram, but oh God, one's enough. And no one needs more than that in their lives. And I think having those really set boundaries around that, kind of like Ghostbusters, don't cross the streams. Occasionally they might need to, but very rarely. And I just think giving those real guidelines. I'm also a very structured person in terms of organisation lists. I love a list. I'm a list. And it's like it's actually a known thing within the whole of my wider family, my bigger family. Whenever we come up against like crisis or adversity, or there's a bit of a family crisis, like, right, we're going to make a list. Sit down, make a list. What do we need to do?
Jess's list is all right. It's going to be awesome.
No, but like my whole family, whenever there's been, so my dad was very unwell with COVID, and we all brothers and sisters came together, and it was just like, right, let's make a list of what we need. Like, right, okay. So it's kind of a family trait. Lists are good. But we have organisers. I've got a big family chalkboard in the family room by the kitchen, and it has got, right, what's the food for the week? Who's doing what? There's kid column, my column, husband column, who's where. We can all visually see. We've got the Google Diary. The Google Diary is multicoloured. It's got what's everything as a family, what's the child's school diary and extracurricular activities, what's my work diary. I don't have my husband's work diary because I don't want it. He doesn't have my work diary because he doesn't want it either. But we can see where, and we've got clear rules. Whoever puts it in the family diary first, that's the one that gets it.
I like that.
And
my wife's more organised than me, so she'd put it in the family diary before me, I'm sure. And I'd always
be a trait.
I would always, I'd go, but you used to say she's very organised, and anyway.
But where we do lead and busy, I literally. In fact, actually, I think the last 2 weeks I have been in a field every single night. for whatever reason, whether it be rugby or cricket, because the seasons now, it's not winter and summer sports anymore. They just go straight through. Whether it is my training, whether it's me on a coaching course, whether it's my son playing a match or he's training somewhere or he's whichever one we're at. And actually you have to be organised and you have to get into a routine of it. And, you know, we do meal plan, nutrition plan, you know, food delivery, that's done. That goes up on the board. So, and we plan it and we look at the diary and go, right, we need a quick for Monday, we need a quick for Tuesday. We can have a little bit of a less of a quick on Wednesday. I've got an hour. Ooh, exciting. We can actually cook something, you know, and you have to have those to make. And if you've got that clear structure, it really helps give you a clear mind of where you are and being present at that time.
Love that. Something I struggle with. I'm working on, but it's great to listen. It's great to listen to people. That's why I always ask it, because it's like I said, it becomes therapy for me, the whole podcast thing. But it's the one thing that I guess for me personally I struggle with. I really find it hard to switch off. So yeah, just listening to different people, how they work and what they do. But I love the idea.
And don't forget, this is how I work.
Yeah. I appreciate
everyone's completely different. This works for me.
Yeah.
You might pick up on one bit and go, that's going to work great for me. But actually, I'm going to pick up on a bit from over here. And if I put those together, that's going to work for my family and me and my headspace and what I'm doing.
I think I might leave the who goes in first, the diary first, because I know I'm going to lose out on that. But we'll take it. Listen, tell me, what does the future hold for Jess Freeman?
What does the future hold for Jess Freeman? Immediately hoping not to break myself playing rugby. I'd like to maybe I'd still be in one piece by the end of the season. That would be amazing. Yeah, so just even getting to a point where I can go back on. I don't think I'll ever be a starter again, but if I can be what we call a game changer, a good old sub off the bench in a first team match, that would be amazing. Business-wise, as I've said, we've expanded. Jill's great as the new HR admin, opening up a whole new dimension to the company, bringing on some more associates so we can expand some of the other areas. And for me as a coach, Mentor Awards finishes in January. That then leads me into my next accreditation that I will start for the following season, that will take roughly around a year, maybe a bit longer to achieve. And then who knows? And maybe more combining of the two, maybe in my new project. So I'm very much involved in a new phase. I've come on board with a new app called A New Icon, which is really, really exciting. And it's trying to address an issue within female athletes and sponsorship. And it's going to be profiling athletes across the board, from grassroots up to Team GB elite athletes.
Wow.
And it's going to be an option for people to be able to get behind a local team player or a national team player. And we're really wanting to build a community, and it's looking at corporate social responsibility for businesses. So if you're a small business, you love football, we've got, I don't know, Brighton and Hove women player on the app. You go, well, do you know what? I can't do big sponsorship, but if I gave like £100 a month through the business, that's our player. We're going to get updates on that as a business. Actually, let's do an away day. We'll get tickets one day to a match, or, you know, if they're doing an open training day, let's go along and we can have lunch and we'll use it as our corporate social responsibility, our team building. And it gives you, and then, you know, Monday morning's like, oh my God, did you watch the match? Yeah, it was amazing. Didn't they play well? That's our player. You know. But for the actual athletes themselves, having some consistency of sponsorship means that they don't have to go to work the next day. I work with Harlequins first team women within community coaching that are working the day before their semi-final. So actually providing some consistency and support through sponsorship at those levels just might fill a little bit of a gap until we've got some more parity with men. And so really that's a new chapter. And sort of another thing that I'm getting involved with, which I'm really, really passionate about. And Lindsay Sortain, who started this passion project Dream 5 years ago, is just a legend for doing it.
Amazing. Exciting times ahead.
Lots of exciting times ahead.
Just we're going to finish with our quick fire questions. Honestly, it's been brilliant chat. I knew it would be. What a great conversation. Let's finish off with our quick fire questions first, and then we'll go right. So, one piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
I was thinking about this when you told me you were going to ask these quick fire questions. I actually just think, just say, you've got this. You're going to have curveballs, and there's going to be your own inner monologue, as well as a million other one outside, telling that you're difficult or you're challenging or you're, a bit emotional, not passionate or dedicated. No, don't get those. You get emotional. But you've got it. You've got it. Just stick with it. You've got it.
Love that. Who has been your biggest inspiration throughout your journey and why?
I don't think there's one. I actually take inspiration. I take nuggets. And I take nuggets from everywhere. And I think inspiration can come from little bits that you just see in someone and go, yeah, okay, that's okay. I can go back, I was inspired to do stuff in music. I used to work at BMG and watch Simon Cowell walking around, strutting around with a cigarette in his very high-waisted trousers, and that was inspiring. Or seeing how Richard Branson was changing and being an employer at V2, and how he'd gone through his journey through it, that was really inspiring. Through, you've got Giselle Mather, who was just this pioneering woman, first level 3 qualified coach. She was doing that as I was just starting to get my qualifications. She took her newborn baby with her to her level 3 courses because she needed to, because it wasn't childcare, which everyone was a bit like, I was like, yeah, she's a queen. And she's now, elite. Just brilliant. People like that you pick up bits through to my son and my family. My son inspires me to be a better coach, to be a better person. When you work with other coaches, they inspire you to be better people if they're enthusiastic. And I guess I'm just a bit of a sponge.
I love that. But that's a great answer, because I think the reason I started this podcast was because I honestly believe, when people ask me that question, I'm the same. I believe we're surrounded within our little business community here, just in Sussex. We're surrounded by people that inspire. Hence why I get people to come on and chat about their journey, because everyone's got a story to tell, and we can all be inspired by everyone's. Because people will take nuggets, like you say, from this episode and from other episodes that resonate with them, and I think that's such a powerful thing, that we're surrounded by people that can inspire us on a daily, from our peers on a daily basis. They haven't got to be, as a footballer, I haven't got to look to Diego Maradona to be, that's my inspiration and blah blah blah. And of course they're them people that are great, but I think when you look a little bit closer to home, there's some real inspiration.
I also think it as well. I mean, it's like I could look at. I'm never going to be Maggie Alfonsi. I'm never going to be, far too well. I'd love to have been a Jess Breach, but she's epic. But I am me, and I can take that inspiration to be the best me. So I don't need to be someone else or behave like one other person that inspires me the most. I can just take all the bits that hopefully improve me.
Super. Right, final one. Could you recommend a business book or a podcast that to our listeners that have had an impact on you and your career?
There's completely the obvious of Richard Branson. When I read his book thousands of years ago, and the thing that I've always taken away from it is, when you're employing people, you want to make sure that you're not the cleverest person in the room. You want to make sure you're employing the cleverest person in the room, because they know their field. And this is why I always work with associates, especially around sort of well-being and some of the coaching side of things that's slightly different to mine, because they know that better than me. So I want to offer, Jessica Freeman HR offers the best, so I bring someone in who's the best. And I got that from reading Richard Branson's book like a decade ago. No, God, decades ago. More recently, Game Changers, Sue Anstice, the game, just the whole Game On thing. She was in No Woman, No Try, the documentary on Amazon about the rise of women's rugby and the challenges it faces. Brilliant book, great Game Changers, great podcast. Game On, great book. And actually, a podcast, I don't often get too much time to listen to podcasts. But But one of them, an episode, rather than more than listening to lots of them, was the Stephen Bartlett episode on imposter syndrome. Yeah. And actually, I don't know if you've more than likely listened to it.
I probably have listened to it. Yeah, I have listened to it, yeah.
And it was the fact that he said of him, this dragon's, this person that's seen as the ultimate of business at the moment, just went, I live in imposter syndrome constantly, and that's okay. Yeah. And it's actually not. It's not a syndrome. It's not an illness. It's not a problem. It actually is changing you and saying, I'm going to be outside of my comfort zone because I'm pushing myself and I'm driving myself to do something new and driving myself to move forward. So first day, walk back into rugby pitch, pre-season training, because that is a thing now. Total imposter syndrome, but that's because I was pushing myself to say, heading towards 50, and I'm actually going to try and play rugby again and coach it at the same time in an adult and coach adults for the first time. It wasn't imposter syndrome because I've got this, but I am pushing myself.
Brilliant. What a great way to wrap up that. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. I knew it would be. Like I said, that first time, when you just meet them, first time we met, we had a chat, and I was like, and it has been brilliant chatting to you. We've had an amazing kind. I think there's going to be so many nuggets that people will take from it, and great learnings and inspiration from you. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
It's been an awesome chat, and that, as they say, is a wrap.